want you to stay around after services so that we can meet you and get to know you a little bit better. And of course, Jim and HK are going to be staying around after services to sign books. If you want to come and be a part of that too, they'll be out in the front. We're just so thankful for the opportunity today. HK has been, he's been on the circuit. He went and spoke to I think it was Stone High School today, full assembly. He went to Fairfield Glade and spoke at a different thing. Did he speak today at the Exchange Club or something like that?
No. Rotary tomorrow and the other high school in the morning.
Rotary tomorrow and high school. So he is
Pikeville on Friday.
Oh, Pikeville on Friday.
He's flipping the coin to start the high school football game.
So we're grateful because he is a busy man. And we're glad to get him here with us tonight. We're just so thankful for, again, the opportunity. Of course, Andy co-authored the book, and that's how we have the connection here. And we're so thankful for Andy to be able to get this arranged for us and be able to get them here tonight. We want to begin with a prayer, and then we got a video, and I'm just going to turn it over to them because you didn't come here to hear me, you came here to hear them. So if you would you bow with me? Father in heaven, we praise your name. We thank you for this day. We thank you for the blessings of life. Father, we thank you for each person that is here. Father, we thank you for Jim and HK being here with us tonight. Father, just ask that you bless them as they speak to us tonight. And Father, bless each of us as we receive the message that they have for us. Father, we just thank you for all that you do and all the blessings of life. For it's in Christ's name we do pray. Amen. All right, we've got a video to play, and then we'll get started.
Well, HK, where you want to go today?
New York City.
New York City? That's a long way. I don't know if the 55 will make it that far.
Let's try.
About 4 years ago, I stopped at Mrs. Winters and saw this young fellow sitting at a table by himself.
He's blind, has cerebral palsy, was born premature. His mom was killed in an accident. His dad didn't want him. His grandmother, Pearl, has raised him.
570, you need honey or jelly or hot sauce? Hot chicken. Okay, smashed potatoes, no gravy.
She works hard to make ends meet.
What you doing?
I couldn't get that off my mind for several weeks. Came home, told Brenda about this little boy I met, and
He is something special.
Yeah.
This living miracle, HK.
Here we go, Titan. There we go.
He sure is.
Who is it? Hey, hello. Who is it? Who is it?
hey, pal.
Hi.
Hey, what's up? He's a neat little person, probably the most outstanding, dynamic personality of any person I've ever met. Come over here, man. I hadn't seen you in how long? Have you missed me?
Yes.
He's just always thrilled to see us, and we just love him.
Jim and Brenda Bradford have grown daughters and a full life, but they decided to make room for HK and Pearl in theirs. And they've given HK something he didn't have. More of a childhood, more of a chance.
I get to the normal things that boys get to do normally. A happy boy, yeah, because I'm a good kid. I'm a good teenager.
HK is a good teenager, and he now has a positive male role model in his life.
All right.
Sometimes the greatest of life's celebrations come to us from unknown directions. Janet Carroll Richardson, Channel 4 News.
So who does Vanderbilt play next week?
Florida, well, Louisville, one day next week.
Here or there?
Think here.
Okay. What about Florida?
They play them in Florida.
Well, most people find it hard to remember where they put their car keys, glasses, or even what they had for dinner last night.
Well, what if you could remember everything that ever happened to you? Well, it is true. It's called hyperthymesia, and doctors say only 2 cases have been reported in the world. One of them is right here in the mid-state. Tonight, News Channel 5's Kim Gebbia shares with us a boy's extraordinary gift and a survival story to boot.
As time passes, it can be hard to remember what happened last week, what happened last year, or recall even a faint memory from 10 years ago.
I'm finished, so I'm gonna spell check it.
But inside the Tennessee School for the Blind, a 21-year-old student who appears disabled and mentally challenged quietly listens, quietly stores an extraordinary gift.
My earliest memory is the first day I ever come to the school on Tuesday, September the 7th of 1993.
That was when H.K. Derryberry was just 3 years old, and he can remember more than just the date.
It was like 85 degrees that day.
Even how he felt on that first day of school.
Which I felt really good that day. I was really excited.
Now a senior at TSB, he can recall every single detail of his life since.
So if I give you a random day, you could tell me what you were doing on that day?
Yes.
So we quizzed HK's memory, randomly asking him about the first Saturday of July, 2009.
First Saturday in July of 2009, I went to Mr. Bradford's, we got ready, went to a picnic at the Huddleston's house.
Like a Rolodex, he walked us through each memory, even what he had for lunch.
It was barbecue.
But surprised us when he revealed what unfolded later that day.
Shocking news from downtown Nashville today.
Between 4 and 5, somebody came out of the house and told me that Steve McNair had been shot.
McNair was discovered dead along with a 20-year-old woman.
Sure enough, it was the day Steve McNair was murdered in his Nashville apartment. But was this just a lucky guess? We asked about Saturday, October 4th, 2008.
It was a history-making night on West End.
HK says he watched the Vanderbilt football game.
They beat Auburn on Saturday, October 4th of 2008.
And this win was a history maker.
To make Vandy 5-0. They beat Auburn 14-13 that day.
13-14, baby. Awesome game.
He was right again. HK's doctor at Vanderbilt Medical Center says it's not luck, but a very rare gift.
Primarily, he's extremely interesting, and there's only been, 1 or 2 cases in the world reported about people who have this, what's termed hyperthymesia, which is the ability to remember anything that's ever happened to him.
A miracle child with a memory that could help others.
There was a purpose for me. God only knows what the purpose was.
HK says when he does realize his life purpose, luckily, it's something he'll never forget. In Nashville, Kim Gebbia, News Channel 5 HD.
It's extraordinary. H.K. Derryberry is graduating this year from the School for the Blind and plans to be a motivational speaker.
Wait a minute.
You want to say test?
Yeah. Testing. Test.
Yeah, okay, it's working. It's working.
Okay. Good evening.
Wait a minute. HK, yesterday the Baptists were much more vocal. Try that one more time.
Good evening.
Well, wait a minute. That's Methodist. Let's try one more.
Okay. Good evening. I'm H.K. Derryberry. This is my good good friend and mentor, Mr. Jim Bradford.
Good evening.
We are very honored to be invited to share our story with you. We hope our presentation will encourage, inspire, and motivate you. I realize the importance of starting these church services on time, but I was afraid we were going to be late getting here this evening. Traffic on the roads from the hotel was bumper to bumper. And I was driving as fast as I could.
I was sedated and screaming.
To get here. We finally made it. Only problem is, all of you folks that made it here tonight took up all the good parking places. So I have no idea where I parked my vehicle. So when you leave church tonight, if any of you see a red SUV with Williamson County license plates, please let me know. That just might be my vehicle. But you may not realize by looking at me, I have some disabilities. I am blind and I have cerebral palsy. So I can't do all the things that you, your children, or maybe even your grandchildren can do. It doesn't keep me from wanting to do those things. I even dream of doing those things that people have told me all my life I can never do with my disabilities. Like many of you, I have always loved law enforcement. And so like Cumberland County Sheriff Casey Cox, I've always tried to stay in great tip-top physical condition. My Casey Cox exercise routine includes I wake up every morning at 5 a.m. Try to be real quiet, not to wake anyone up. Then I put on my Nike walking shoes and my Derrick Henry Tennessee Titan sports attire. Then I work up a big sweat by walking around the block 3 times as fast as I can. Then I stop, take a couple of deep breaths to relax. Then I bend over, I pick up the block. Then I put the block back in the closet. Then I climb back in bed, sleep to 10. My favorite sport is football. I've always wanted to play football, but I figure with my disabilities, I will never have the opportunity to play. However, last October, one day after the University of Alabama Crimson Tide crushed the Tennessee Volunteers in football for the 16th consecutive year. I overheard a disgruntled Tennessee football fan, a disgruntled Tennessee football fan who lives here in Clarksville say, our quarterback must be blind. He couldn't complete a single pass. Well, folks, when I heard that was the most exciting news I'd ever heard. I thought, if Tennessee's quarterback is blind, I'm blind, I can probably play quarterback on a college football team. So I immediately had Mr. Bradford drive me to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where I met with Alabama Crimson Tide head football coach Nick Saban. Coach Saban I said, Coach Saban, I'd like to try out for quarterback. I love Alabama football. I love winning national championships. I would love to be the quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Coach Saban took one look at me, said, HK, thanks for coming. I'm glad you love Alabama football. I'm glad you love winning national championships. You are a brave young man, but you're not fast enough. You don't weigh enough. You're not tall enough, and you're not related. You are not related to Peyton Manning. So as you would expect, I didn't make the team. Coach Saban said, HK, we can't use you at Alabama, but why don't you go up to Nashville, to Vanderbilt? That when they play us, they frequently have blind quarterbacks. Needless to say, I didn't make either team. I didn't give up though. I was once told, your attitude determines your altitude in life. So like all of you folks here tonight, I never gave up. I like to soar like a Tennessee volunteer chasing a busload of Pittsburgh Panthers. Then I thought to myself, I said, HK, let's think of something that would be easy for you folks to do tonight, but would be very challenging for a blind boy to do. Then I remembered, I've been riding in my grandmother's vehicle for 32 years now. She makes driving seem really easy. When I heard that Gayla Covington drives 50 in a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone through downtown Clarksville while drinking Starbucks coffee and sending text messages at the same time, I thought, since I don't drink coffee and I don't text. Driving must be really easy. So I immediately applied for driver's education. The instructor took one look at me, said, "HK, thanks for applying for this course. You are a brave young man, but you need a learner's permit for completion of this course. Come back when you can get one." Well, folks, as you can imagine, I hadn't been back, and I won't be going back until they invent a car that can safely drive itself. Folks, I realize here at Linary Church of Christ, you expect your speakers to always be honest and tell the truth. Well, I must apologize to you tonight. What I just told you is not the truth. It's a joke. With my disabilities, I cannot play football or drive a car. Where I went to school, all of us boys are blind, so we don't have a football team, much less offer driver's education. If they offered driver's ed, they'd lose all their federal funding. Plus, the accident rate in Tennessee would be a lot higher. As Romans 12:6 says, God has given each of us the ability to do certain things well. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. In sports, there's small schools like Tennessee Tech. If they have to play a big school like Tennessee or Kentucky in football, they would be considered the underdog, which means they are not expected to win. Well, in life, I have always been considered the underdog. What I mean by that is people tell me things I can't do without complimenting me for things that I can. When I was born, due to the accident that took my mother's life, doctors told my grandmother I probably wouldn't live long. Well, July 8th of this year, I just turned 32 years old, and I am still kicking. Doctors also told my grandmother that I would probably be confined to a wheelchair. Well, I walked in here tonight, no need for a wheelchair. In school, teachers told my grandmother and I that I wasn't smart enough nor capable to handle a regular class load. So they were saying I wouldn't graduate high school. Well, June 1st, 2012, this little underdog pulled a major upset. I completed all the courses required of me by the state of Tennessee in order to receive a regular academic high school diploma, and I passed them all, including algebra, which is especially a challenge for a blind boy who reads and writes Braille with only the use of one hand. What I'm sharing with you folks tonight is with God in your life, anything is possible. And I encourage all of you, just always maintain positive attitude. If you work hard, maintain positive attitude, you can accomplish most anything in life within your capabilities. The only disability any of us have in life is a negative attitude. So I encourage all of you to always be positive. If you are ever down, depressed, just think things can't get any worse, just pick up the phone, call toll-free 20HK Derryberry in Columbia, Tennessee. I will give you a no-charge, 100% money-back guaranteed Linary Church of Christ pep talk. Before I was 9 years old, my grandmother and I did not have much of a social life. We didn't have kids. We didn't have kids in the neighborhood that would play with me. Kids in the neighborhood looked at me like I was different. They were afraid of me. So when I wasn't in school, most of the time I was at home from the time I got up in the morning till I went to bed at night, listening to radio. That can be fun some days, but also that can get to be very lonely, especially for a blind boy who is not mobile without assistance. But all that changed when I turned 9 years old. I met my good friend and mentor, Mr. Jim Bradford. He made an investment into me, invested his time, money, and patience into me. He quickly changed my life. He let me do things normal boys my age get to do that I had never gotten to do. He became a father figure to me, which I had never really had, because my father abandoned me at age 5. Mr. Bradford let me borrow his eyes. What I mean by that is, seeing as how I can't see, he painted word pictures for me so I could visualize things you were seeing. He told me he loved me. He told me he was proud of me. He's proud to introduce me to his friends. He told me I would be a success in life. He and his wife, Brenda, even buy me nice clothes so I look like other young men my age. 22 and a half years later, the return on Mr. Bradford's initial investment into me has created a priceless friendship.
On October 16th of this year, it would be the 23rd anniversary of the day that I met HK. I was 56 years old that year. My wife Brenda and I have two grown daughters that were both out of college and had moved away from home, so we are empty nesters, and probably the last thing on our mind was bringing another child into our lives, especially one with disabilities. But what I found out that cold October morning, which was a Saturday morning, was that God sometimes works in mysterious ways. The least suspecting thing that you can imagine sometimes doesn't happen, or maybe it does happen. But I had played tennis that morning, something I had done every Saturday morning in the winter for about 15 years. And I don't know if you're familiar with Nashville or not, but a suburb of Nashville is called Green Hills. They have a shopping center. There's also a McDonald's there. And so my three tennis partners and I, we would meet every Saturday morning in the winter about 7:30. We'd have breakfast at McDonald's. I was typically a 1 cup of coffee a day person, and I always had my coffee at McDonald's. We would chat, talk, have breakfast. Then at 8 o'clock, we would get in our cars, drive over to an indoor tennis court just a few minutes away, and then we'd play tennis till 10 o'clock. And typically, after tennis was over, we would spend the next 30, 40 minutes just cooling off, drinking Gatorade, water, talking about family, business, what have you. But for some reason that morning, as I was playing tennis, all I could think about was going to Starbucks in Brentwood, where I live, and going to get a cup of coffee. And that would be my second cup of coffee for the day, which was very unusual. Anyway, when the match was over, rather than hanging with the guys for 30, 40 minutes, I tell them bye, I get in my car and head out to Brentwood. If you've been to Brentwood, we don't really have a town. It's more of a bedroom community. It's mostly houses, subdivision. They're springing up some little shopping centers now, but the major intersection is at the corner of Franklin Road and Old Hickory Boulevard. I'm waiting at a traffic light to turn right when the light turns green, and I'm going to drive exactly 1 mile, and I'm at Starbucks, a place that I'd visited in the past. But as I sat there waiting for the traffic light to change, now this was 23 years ago, I had never heard the term GPS. My vehicle certainly didn't have it. I don't think I even had a cell phone back then. Maybe I did. I can't remember. That's been a long time ago. But anyway, I think God was my GPS that morning, because when the light turned green and I'm going to turn right and drive a mile for my coffee, I just happened to glance over to the left, and there's a sign, red and white, about 20 feet in the air, says, Mrs. Winter's Chicken and Biscuits. And instead of turning, and I think I had my blinker on to turn right, but I turned left. I drove 1/10 of a mile into a little parking lot that the parking lot had larger potholes than our streets this past winter. The little red and white building was grubby. It needed painting, a lot of cosmetics. I think there was probably 20 packs of cigarette butts as I walked through the parking lot to get to the door. Anyway, I walk in to get my gourmet coffee. And the little lady behind the counter is about 4 feet inches tall, and she's little gray hair, and says, "May I help you?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. I would like a cup of coffee." She said, "Are you 55 years old?" I'm thinking, what does age have to do with my getting a cup of coffee? I had just recently attended one of my high school class reunions where I personally voted myself the youngest looking male member of my class. And I knew I didn't look 55, but I turned to see who she was talking to, and there's nobody behind me, so I know it's me. I said, "Yes, ma'am, I'm 55. She said, "Congratulations, because at 55 in our restaurant, you qualify as a senior citizen." Now, the good part was, she said, "Your coffee, instead of 95 cents, is only 25 cents. I said, "Hot dog, what about a chicken?" "No, just coffee." Now I'm going to tell you the whole story. If you go to Starbucks, how many of you have ever been to Starbucks to get a cup of? Okay, they are the most courteous people. Matter of fact, when I go, I want to give a tip of $2 on a $2 cup of coffee. They even named their small coffee tall. That's a marketing ploy to just make you think you're getting more value for this small cup of coffee. They also, when you order the coffee at Starbucks, they say, "What's your name, Jim?" And they actually write your name on the cup. And then when it's time for the person to fill your cup, they'll, "Jim, yes, I'm here. Would you like to save room for cream?" I mean, how courteous can that be? And then when your coffee is finished, they put a lid on it, and down at the counter they say, "Jim, coffee, thank you, come back." I mean, that is courteous. It wasn't that way at the chicken restaurant. It was 2 cents tax on my quarter, so it was 27 cents, which was a bargain. But she pulls a styrofoam cup out of the little cup holder, and the first one she gives me looked like some child had eaten a bite out of it. I said, "Ma'am, I think this is used." She said, "Well, give it to me." And she threw it in the garbage and gave me another one. She said, "The coffee's right over there." And there was one urn that said regular and one said decaf. I didn't have any other choices. I don't know about you, but the way I fix my coffee is I normally fill it, leaving room for a little cream. I put one little pack of creamer in it, usually one Splenda, stir it, sip it, and one is usually not enough. It takes a half of enough, so you get it just right. Well, I'm thinking, this is perfect. It tastes great, and 27 cents, this is probably the biggest value I'll have all day. I put the lid on it. Now, let me tell you, I was 56 years old. I had never in my life stopped to talk to a child with a disability, nor had I stopped to talk to an adult with a disability. I had seen them before, children in wheelchairs, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. I never talked to them because I didn't know what to say. I kind of felt sorry for them, had pity. I tried not to stare at them because I was afraid they'd catch me staring because they looked a little different. So as I turned to leave, for the first time, when I walked in, I didn't think there was anybody in the dining room because I'm thinking at 10:45 in the morning, this must be the transition between breakfast and lunch. But as I turned to leave, I do see finally a little boy sitting at the table by himself with a little black boombox radio. He's kind of leaning over the radio with the volume turned down, I assume so that if there were customers having lunch or breakfast, he wouldn't disturb them. But what I noticed was he needed a haircut. He had on a white T-shirt with food stains, had on some little khaki shorts that were too small, and it was a cold day. But he had on white braces, and I knew something was wrong with the little boy. Being inquisitive, I turned, and there was a lady behind the counter putting plastic utensils in a container, getting ready, I guess, for lunch. She had a name badge on, said Helen. I said, "Pardon me, Helen." I said, "Who's the little boy?" She said, "Oh, that's HK. He's our sweetheart." I said, "Well, who is HK?" She said, "Well, the lady sold you the coffee. Her name is Pearl. She can't afford a babysitter, so on weekends, he comes and sits while she works." And I said, "Well, how long does he sit?" She said, "Only from 8 till 5. I said, "You got to be kidding." And I ticked her off big time. She said, "Well, he doesn't do it every day. He goes to school during the week." And I'm thinking, I shouldn't have said that. But I'm turning to leave with my perfect 27-cent cup of coffee. I'm going to walk right by the little kid that has braces on his legs like I've always done. She sarcastically to my back says, "And he's also blind." I walk right to the table and said, "Hey, buddy, what's your name?"
I'm HK. What's your name?
My name's Jim.
Nice to meet you.
Well, nice to meet you, HK.
Where do you live?
I live in Brentwood.
What street?
Harpeth River Drive.
What's that off of?
Old Hickory Boulevard.
What time did you get up this
6
morning?
6 o'clock.
Then what did you do?
Took a shower.
Then what?
Put on my tennis clothes.
Then what?
Drove to McDonald's, and we'll stop right there. I was trying to ask him some questions. Among all those questions, what'd you do next? He wouldn't answer. I kind of felt like this must be like what it's like maybe being interrogated by the FBI without the spotlights. But anyway, I'm thinking this is the craziest kid I've ever met. So after about 3 minutes, I'm trying to get out of there. I said, "Hey, buddy, it's nice to meet you, but Brenda, my wife's got some things I've got to do this morning, so I'm going to have to leave, but nice to meet you."
Nice to meet you, too. Hope to see you again soon.
Well, I hope to see you again, too. And I didn't realize what I had just committed to. On October 16th, I just made a 23-year commitment to come back to visit this little boy. So I leave. When I get in my car, I put that perfect tasting cup of coffee in the cup holder. I go to the post office, which is close by. You know exactly where the post office is. I then go to Kroger, which was down the street, Franklin Road. Then I drop by the Chinese dry cleaners on Maryland Way, and I get home about an hour and 10 minutes later. And you know what? The cup of perfect tasting coffee is still in the cup holder, unopened, not one sip taken, because I can't get the little boy off my mind. That's all I thought about all day and all weekend. Sitting at church on Sunday, I'm thinking that poor little guy sitting there today with those braces. I doubt if he can get up, even go to the restroom by himself or go get a refill on his soft drink. Know what I did next Saturday morning after tennis? I went back to the restaurant. I pulled in. I looked through the window. I saw his silhouette. I got kind of excited because he's there. This time, instead of standing, I pulled out a chair and I sat down. He said, we won't go through the same exercise. He said, what's your name? I said, Jim. He said, are you the man I met last week? I said, yes. He said, where do you live? What street? What's that? He went through that same thing. But I stayed for 20 minutes. The next Saturday, guess what I did after tennis? I went back to the chicken restaurant. He was there again. I sat down. We went through the same exercise. The third time I went back to visit him, I started the conversation. I said, HK, my name is Jim. I'm the guy that you've met 3 previous weeks. I do about the same thing every Saturday in the winter. I play tennis and I do all this stuff for Brenda. And here's the deal. I have not, in 3 times visiting with you, I don't know any more about you today than I did 3 weeks ago. So if you start those next questions, I said, this will be the last time I ever come to visit you. And guess what? I found out how smart he was because he's never asked me those questions again. So we started talking, and then he started telling me stuff about his life. And then his grandmother she would be looking for me. So if I came, she would take her break to sit and talk because she had no other social friends other than her blind grandson when she got home to talk to. She loved to talk. I never asked any questions, but she told me the whole family history. And what I found out was HK's mother and father, who now are both deceased, are the reason, their lifestyle was the reason he's blind and has cerebral palsy. He's not blind and has cerebral palsy because of birth defects. His mother dropped out of school in the 7th grade. Her mother was an over-the-road truck driver. Nothing wrong with that profession, but a 14-year-old girl needs parents that give some kind of direction and love, and she didn't get it. So she drops out of school as a 7th grader. William, she's now 19. William, his father, went through school to the 10th grade, and then his buddies were into petty theft, drinking and drugs, and he thought that was a better life than getting an education, so he drops out of school as a 10th grader. They've been together for 8 months, and she is now 6 months pregnant with HK. She goes to pick him up on a farm on a Saturday afternoon, July 7th of 1990, where he's been out in the hot sunshine baling hay for 10 hours, which he's going to get paid in cash, $50. And when Mary and William get to the bar that night or the pub, wherever they're going to be at the top of the income chain with $50 cash. They're going to have a fun time. So she gets up about 3 in the afternoon, gets cleaned up. She goes to the farm to pick him up. On the way, she stops at a convenience store and picks up beer and ice and puts in a cooler in the trunk of the car. And when she gets to the farm, now remember, it's July 7th. That is hot down in Middle Tennessee. He's probably hungry, thirsty, dehydrated, tired. But when she opens that trunk and opens that cooler and he sees all that beer there, since she was cleaned up, he probably didn't hug her, but he may have given her a high five. I wasn't there, but I'll bet they drank every container of beer in the cooler. On the way back, he drove to the little apartment they shared so he could get cleaned up and get ready. Somehow, she didn't. He buckled his seatbelt, she didn't. So on the way back, for some reason, he lost control of the vehicle. No other cars within a mile of him. On a straight stretch that was no hills and no curves, he runs off the road and hits head-on into an oak tree. He suffers a cut lip, a bruised sternum. She's ejected from the vehicle. When eventually some passengers come along and call 911, the paramedics, when they arrive, they realize that she has suffered severe head trauma. Basically, is brain dead. But her unborn baby's heart's still beating. I'm not a doctor, don't know how they did it, but they hooked her up to all kind of things to keep her blood flowing, heart pumping, till they could get a helicopter to come from Vanderbilt called Life Flight to fly her back to Vanderbilt Medical Center, where they put her on life support until the next morning at 5:30. And the doctor came out because her mother had gotten word of the accident. She got there at 5:30. The doctor approached her and gave her a choice. And we have choices sometimes in life. Sometimes we make good choices, sometimes we make bad choices. Remember, stopped at the traffic light. My choice is, do I turn right and go 1 mile, spend $2 for my coffee, or do I turn left and go 1/10 of a mile and pay 27 cents for my coffee? That's a minor decision. The doctor said, Mrs. Moon, your daughter will not survive. She's got severe head trauma. We've got her on life support. Once you make your decision, we're going to turn it off. Now, here's the choice. We can deliver your grandson because his heart's still beating. If we do, we don't think he'll live. If he does live, he'll have a lifetime of medical issues. Or if you prefer, we can just let the baby go with the mother. Thank God she made the decision, or we wouldn't be speaking tonight. She said, deliver the baby. 2 years ago, that grandmother passed away at age 74. She never saw HK because she never came back after telling the doctor to deliver him. So his mother, William's mother, Pearl, has raised HK. He never knew the other grandmother. And when I first met him and would bring him home and he would sit in my lap and hug me around the neck, I'm thinking, this lady is missing so much in life because this little boy with the disabilities is so loving and is just overwhelmed. He just wants to be loved. That's the way he started life. After about the 6th or 7th visit, when I would tell him bye after spending 30 minutes at the restaurant with him, when I said bye, he would get up out of his chair as good as he could. He'd grab me around the waist and cry. And his grandmother would have to leave the cash register and come calm him down. After it happened twice, she called me the next Monday and said, Jim, let me tell you why he does that, and I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to embarrass you or anything like that. But at school for the blind, they're all disabled. They don't do anything. They don't play. They don't do sports. They don't go out for physical education. They're just there. He has no friends. When he gets home with me, we don't have any neighborhood friends that come visit, knock on the door. The kids don't play with him because he looks different and all this stuff. So his only friends are the customers on Saturdays and Sundays that come and visit the restaurant, that stop at the table and talk to him. And probably after eating chicken for a number of weeks, they decide there must be another place here that I can eat. They stop coming after having told him bye. They never come back. And when you tell him bye, he thinks you're going to be like those other folks and never come back to visit. Now, if a grandmother tells you that, how do you not go back and visit this young man? That's the way our friendship started. After about 2 months or 3 months, I said, Pearl, do you trust me enough to take HK away from the restaurant? I've got to do a little things at Home Depot, and I can take him with me if you don't mind. She said, I think I can trust you. So I took him to Home Depot. All of you have been to Home Depot, right? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I knew you had knucklehead. I was with you. So anyway, HK weighed 47 pounds. He was 9 years old. He looked about 5, maybe 4. So I take him. I just pick him up, put him in a basket. He's so thrilled. He'd never been there before. Now, I was going for a purpose. I was buying some light bulbs that go in a security system outdoors. If Brenda, my wife, went to get those, she would take the part number. She would go to the cash register and say, the cashier, she'd say, ma'am, I need 2 of these. Would you have somebody, one of those men in the orange jacket, go get me one of those, or 2 of those, and I'll wait right here and pay when they find them. Us guys don't do that. We know where stuff is. Okay, so when we get there, we say, yeah. So HK said, Mr. Bradford, you know where the light bulbs are? I said, yes, I do. They're on aisle, I think, 29 or 30. So I push him in the cart all the way down to aisle 30, and guess what? It's building materials. 29 is roofing. 28 is chains and ropes and all kinds of things. And finally, a guy in an orange apron comes up and says, boys, look like y'all need some help. I said, well, I'm looking for these special light bulbs that go in a security system outdoors. He said, oh, you're on the wrong end of the store. They're on aisle 2. And my buddy says,
that's like the blind leading the blind.
If you didn't hear him, he said, that's like the blind leading the blind. So I learned that morning, that he did have personality as well as being smart. That's kind of the way we started. Now I'm going to jump. There's a lot of stories, and if y'all don't mind if I go a few minutes later, because there's more to the story. And I'm checking my watch, okay? If you have to leave, just drop a $100 bill and go ahead and leave. I'm kidding. But anyway, we started doing things. Let me tell you about HK. First off, even though he has all of those, God gave him the disabilities. But God gave him some abilities that most of us will never have. He's got this unbelievable memory. When I'm with him in my car, it's like having Google sitting next to you. I mean, he doesn't miss a thing. Mr. Bradford, you're wrong. That wasn't the date. HK, can you tell me the phone number of this lady that called me 4 months ago and you were in the car? Yes, he just rattles it off. Thank you. I mean, it's just amazing because he doesn't forget anything. But let me tell you about school. At school, if we were talking to teachers, I would be reminding them that you never give up on one student, because he started at the School for the Blind at 3 years old, the youngest student to ever go there. Mainly because Pearl made minimum wage. She worked during the week at the fast food place, and they accepted him kind of so that she had child care that was paid for by the state. And you can go to school in Tennessee until you're 22 years old, or you graduate, whichever occurs first. If you don't graduate, you get a certificate of completion after 22 years, or at age 22. Well, HK starts, the school, when he started, had been in existence 150 years. No child had ever learned to use a Braille machine. He's paralyzed on his right side, so if you shake hands with him later, he can't feel anything on the right side. So no child had ever learned to use a Braille machine with one hand only. But when he was 5 years old, his kindergarten teacher saw something that no one else saw in HK. From age 5 to age 7, she taught this little blind boy how to use a Braille machine with just his left hand. Because of that, he's literate. He can read and write Braille. Now with technology today, he's got this little iPhone that's really special. You speak into it, and when he sends me a text, it comes out in print, but he verbally tells it. When I send him a text, it says, Mr. Bradford says, it says verbally, it tells him what it says. He doesn't have to read Braille, but he has a little computer attached to it. He can read all the news. He can read all the books that he wants to read. He loves education. When he was old enough to be an 8th grader, the teachers didn't think he was smart enough nor capable of taking a regular curriculum. So therefore, he was going to get a certificate of completion eventually, but he wouldn't graduate. One teacher believed in him and just fought like everything to get the other teachers to let him be in a regular core class curriculum. They said, Bill, it won't work. He'll be too slow because he only uses one hand, half the speed of the others. It'll hinder the teachers. It'll hinder the other kids. It just won't work. But we're going, since you're so insistent, we're going to put him in the 8th grade, where he was old enough to be in the 8th grade. And we'll give him 9 weeks to see how it works. Ma'am, on the second row, after 9 weeks, how do you think he was doing? Doing great? No, you're wrong. You're going to get a second chance. He was doing terrible, and you know what the staff said? We told you so, Bill. He's not capable. He's not smart enough. And Bill said he didn't give up. Don't ever give up on that one child. Bill said maybe he's not mature enough for the 8th grade because he's never been in a class with these other students. Let's move him back. Maybe the 6th grade. Would y'all let him? Yes, we'll give you one more chance, Bill, but that's it. Second chance. After 9 weeks in the 6th grade, how do you think he was doing? I'm going to give you a hint. Watch my signals. He was absolutely doing great. He made the honor roll. And do you know at the end of that year, they called me and Pearl and HK together and said, we've got some good news for you, HK. In the fall, when you come back to school, you're going to be an 8th grader. You did so well, you're skipping 7th grade. He never had a problem with education after that. And thank goodness for guys like Bill Schenck, believing in this one little blind boy, and he made it. Now, how does he make a living today? Hard as heck. But after he graduated, we sent him to Tennessee Rehabilitation, where they try to teach you how to transition from school to a job and transition to independent living. And it normally takes 12 months minimum for the students to learn all this. And they call me after 2 months and says, Jim, we need to talk with you. HK, there's nothing he can do. We've determined there's nothing he can do, so you might as well come get him. They didn't say it that way, but that's what they meant. They did let him walk through graduation with the class that was graduating. And anyway, so he said, Mr. Bradford, what do I do? I said, HK, you have a wonderful life story. I think you could be a wonderful motivational speaker. You can inspire and motivate other people that are just like you, or anybody that's having difficulties in life. If they look at you and say, gosh, if that little kid can do it, what am I got to complain about? So that's when we started kind of thinking about speaking. So a friend of mine named David Booth invited us to come to Christ Presbyterian Church and speak to, this is our first event ever, speak to his senior adult Sunday school class.
In 2007.
The average age was 82 years old. All these little gray-haired people. And we go, and I said, David, we've never done this. What do you want us to talk about? He said, well, tell the story. Tell about HK's parents and stuff. I said, well, David, we've never done that. HK at the time, he wasn't really good at speaking. I said, well, okay, if you want us to do it. But so anyway, we kind of talked about it. I did most of the talking. And after we had about 20 minutes, I guess, to do this. But anyway, long story short, we'd been speaking 3 minutes, and here comes 25 boxes of Kleenex. And everybody's grabbing a Kleenex, wiping their eyes, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing they've ever heard. Why did I ever tell HK to be a motivational speaker? So when we finished, David came up. He was wiping tears from his eyes, and I said, David, I apologize. He said, no, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. That was so wonderful. So about 2 or 3 months later, I guess it was, somebody that heard us told somebody at a Baptist church. We did the same thing with the same results. They had 40 boxes of Kleenex tissues. I said, HK, if you're going to be a motivational speaker and I'm going to be your co-speaker, we've got to do something different to make them laugh, not cry, because emotionally I can't take this. So then the next time we were invited, we kind of put in some funny stories. And that's the way we started. Eventually, a friend of mine that makes his living doing motivational speaking and seminars on business, that's the way he makes his living. He said, I'd like to come hear you guys one night if you're doing something. And so he came to a Methodist church. We were speaking in Brentwood. And he met me at Chick-fil-A across the street the next morning to give me a critique. Because I said, I'd love for you to, since you're a professional doing this. So he did. He had a notebook about this thick. I said, oh my gosh, I hope it's not full of notes that he made. But it wasn't. It was just the size of his notebook, maybe 1 page of notes. He said, Jim, you guys are pretty darn good. What's your fee? I said, beg your pardon? He said, what is your fee? I said, what do you mean? He said, how much do y'all charge to do that? I said, well, we don't charge anything. I said, HK just loves to do it. He said, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Y'all need to be charging, and this poor boy needs money. So anyway, long story short, eventually we started, I would say, do you have a budget for your speaker? And because the first person that called us, asked if we could do it, he said, what's your fee? And I was so embarrassed to ask him what I was told to ask. And I think I lowered it a whole lot. He said, oh my gosh, yeah, we could have you 3 times. I told HK, he said, Mr. Bradford, you're the dumbest guy I've ever been around. So anyway, long story short, everything he earns today, I set up a special needs trust for him. So everything goes into this trust. We haven't had to use it. We've got it for long term so that one of these days, he has no relative. He has one uncle that's his only relative. His grandmother, who just suffered a severe stroke. This is her 8th week in rehab, and she's may or may not get better. He's been having 24/7 sitters, except when I can be there to spend days or nights with him. So we're faced with some challenges, but we're putting this money aside so that one of these days he'll have some source of living by himself. The federal government gives this poor boy Social Security with all of his disability $533 a month. And if they found out that he has at least $2,000 in the bank, they cut it off until he spends below $2,000. Dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And here's a guy that can't beat you. Anyway, that's too much to say that.
No,
I can be political, and I don't mean to be.
Okay.
But anyway, that's okay. No, these people don't like that, HK. I'm just kidding. Now, let me tell you just a little bit about the memory thing. His memory is, yes, I normally don't do this because I don't have a script, but Andy back there today said, you might want to do this or this. And I said, Andy hadn't thought of those things in 5 or 6 years. And I wrote down here the word loyalty. Let me tell you about HK. Now, we are good friends, but if there's one thing he is not, it is not loyal. Okay? Let me tell you that Brenda and I, we did have a pontoon boat and a lake house at Tim Ford Lake, not too far from Nashville, about an hour and a half drive. And HK, we would take HK. Well, he became the hit at the marina because in the summer, the marina hired high school and college-age single girls to be food servers. Well, they liked HK so much that the owner of the marina, his wife called me when they said, Jim, are y'all going to be at the lake this weekend? I said, well, actually we are. It's HK's birthday. She said, that's why I'm calling. It's the 8th. It's Saturday the 8th. I want to do a special little surprise birthday. I'll make him a cake and everything. The girls can be here. I said, well, that's great. So I said, but I won't tell him. So anyway, we get there, and anyway, they've got the chocolate birthday cake. Brenda and I take another couple with us that weekend, and we're sitting at one table, and 2 tables are kind of put together over here with HK and his little, I'll tell you what he calls them in a minute, but all the cute girls. So we're sitting there, and we're not really participating because they're over there singing happy birthday and getting ready to cut the cake. And HK said, girls, would y'all like to be part of my entourage? I said, Brenda, did you hear what he just said? She said, what? And I told her, and she said, gosh, what have you taught him? I said, I had nothing to do with it. So anyway, I tapped him on the shoulder. This is a true story. I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, HK, pardon me. I said, I have been your loyal friend for, at that time, maybe it was for 15 years. And I thought I would be part of your entourage, but you didn't invite me. So if you're getting these cute girls to do it, what am I?
You can be my driver.
You can be my driver. That's a long way from being part of the entourage.
You can be my driver.
Okay. So anyway, we just have so much fun. But let me tell you, he doesn't forget anything. He would say things like, Mr. Bradford, you know Brenda's birthday is next Thursday? I said, I do. He said, you got her a present yet? I said, I don't. He said, you better get one. I said, okay. Sunday, Brenda, Mr. Bradford, have you got Brenda's present? I said, yes, I do. He said, what is it? HK, you won't tell, will you? No, I can keep a secret. I tell him. As soon as he sees Brenda, Brenda, let me tell you what Mr. Bradford got you for your birthday. I said, HK, you were going to keep a secret. He said, she just needed to know. We took him one night to a Backyard Burger. It's a hamburger place there in Brentwood. You go to one window and place your order when you first come in. They give you a number. You go take a table. They call your number. You go back to another window and pick up your food. We walked in, and HK, this is way back in the early 2000s, he wasn't quite as tall at that point as the counter was high. And the guy behind the counter kind of stoops over and looks. He said, pardon me, is that you, HK?
Yes. What's your name?
I'm Stanley.
Are you the one that worked at Miss Winters?
Yes, I used to work with your grandmother Pearl over at Mrs. Winters on Franklin Road.
Are you the one that got fired for smoking marijuana?
Brother Joe, I hope you didn't hear that. Brenda said, did he say what I think he did? I said, he did. She said, order and let's get out of here. That's a true story. He was being really sincere trying to help Stanley. Also, in 2001, if you're familiar with Vanderbilt in any capacity, they have a sports program. But we've been in Nashville living for 47 years, and at one period, Vanderbilt went 22 consecutive years without having a winning football season. In 2001, we're on probably a September or early October day. Vanderbilt was playing Northern Illinois, and it's the first time probably in 2 years they've been the favored team to win. And they're a 7-point favorite. At halftime, Vanderbilt's trailing 17-0, and I think they wound up losing 31-0 on a game they were predicted to win by 7. I just made the simple comment. I said, HK, I feel so sorry for Vanderbilt.
Well, Mr. Bradford.
Well, they don't win many football games, and their players probably have low morale, bad attitudes. The coaches lose their jobs.
Coaches lose their jobs.
Well, HK, in college, coaches are paid lots of money, but if they don't, then they're paid to win. So if they don't win, they get fired.
Oh, that's so sad.
Now, that was the 2001 football season. Can you jump ahead about 3 seasons to basketball? I have met, through my Rotary Club, Kevin Stallings, who at the time was the head basketball coach at Vanderbilt. So I was telling Kevin one day, I said, Kevin, I've got this little buddy, he's blind. He loves Vanderbilt sports. He listens to every sporting event on radio, and he loves your basketball team. I would love to somehow get you to meet him. He would be thrilled. He said, well, bring him to practice one night. I said, are you kidding? He said, no, bring him up to Memorial Gym, and he can talk to the players and my coaches. I said, well, gosh, I'll do it. So we set up a night on, I think it was a Wednesday night. So I take him to practice, and the team is already practicing when we get there. Of course, HK can't see, but he can hear the squeaking tennis shoes and the bouncing ball, and he just gets so excited. So Kevin saw us come in and said, Jim, you and your little buddy I'll take a break here in a few minutes and come over and meet him. So in a few minutes, they took a little time out. Kevin comes over and says, this your little buddy? I said, yeah, Kevin, it sure is. And he said, well, hey, HK, how are you?
Good. What's your name?
Well, I'm Kevin Stallings.
Oh, Kevin, what's your job?
Oh, what's my job? Well, I'm the head basketball coach here at Vanderbilt.
Kevin.
HK, calm down.
Let me tell you what Mr. Bradford said. He said, if you don't win me games, you're going to get fired.
Brother Joe, pray for him.
Why?
Well, Kevin was a good sport. He said, hold it. And I'm thinking, oh no, if he had just not said Mr. Bradford said, you could have said I read it in the paper or something. He called all the assistant coaches over and he said, HK, tell them what you just told me. And he told them, he said, boys, if y'all don't win a lot of games this year, you're all getting fired. Do you know that season was the best season on one-loss record they ever had at Vanderbilt under Kevin Stallings? They went to the Sweet 16 in the national playoffs, and every time they won a game, HK would say,
because of the pep talk I gave Kevin.
Yeah, it was because of the pep talk that you gave Kevin. Now, I can't remember the last time we spoke that he was speechless, but tonight he's almost speechless.
What do you mean?
Well, you're getting excited. You're laughing as much as the audience.
I didn't mean to.
But anyway, we have had a lot of fun in 23 years. When he said, I changed his life, you can't imagine how it's changed my life. I don't get as emotional as I used to, but it used to be I'd be speaking and I'd think of something and I'd get kind of emotional. But he is on the board. Well, he and I were on the board for 4 years of Miracle League Music City. We were raising money to build a miracle baseball park for people with disabilities. And then he moved to Columbia with his grandmother. She sold her little house in Nashville. They built a little house way out in the country in Murray County. And so they're trying to build a baseball field too. And so I called a couple of folks, took them to their first meeting, pitched them on what HK had done for the fundraising in Nashville, and so they made him an advisor to the board of directors of Miracle Field, Columbia. And so I'm just going to tell you all tonight that the second or third meeting we went to, everybody's saying, okay, here's a list of prospective people that could be donors here in the city. So who knows this one? Who knows this one? And they're dividing up all the people in all the companies that they're going to call on. And so when they finished, I said, pardon me, I said, I named off 3 companies. I said, are y'all familiar with those 3 companies? And sort of, not really. Why? Well, HK and I know, he knows the CEO of those companies. Why don't you give us those companies and we'll call on them. Okay, so we did. Now, the largest check that we have so far was the first one given by Dan Ugla. Dan played baseball for 10 years in the major leagues. He got with the Atlanta Braves, he got a $45 million contract that was guaranteed. So he resigned after 10 years, retired on $45 million. I'm sure anyway, he wrote a check for $250,000. HK and I, though, called on those little businesses that nobody knew about. And the first check that he got was for $50,000. The second check was for $2,500. The third check is goods and we called on a company that they rent cranes. So they've said we'll provide crane services at no charge to put in the scoreboard, the light fixtures, and all those kind of things. And then his most recent donation that he got from TVA is about $400,000. So he now has raised $452,500 plus all the crane services. Pretty remarkable for a little boy that couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
HK, they're probably going to start calling you to come down and fundraise for the church.
Yeah.
You might have to get a motorhome or something.
I'll be glad to do it.
Okay. Folks, I know we've kept you a little bit longer than promised tonight. If you haven't, if you didn't meet HK, how many of you didn't meet HK when you got here? Okay, sir in the striped shirt on the third row. Would you tell HK your birthday, month, day, and year?
Will do. Also, I've already talked to HK.
Well, go ahead and do it again. There's so many people that didn't get a chance to talk to him.
HK, I'm Mark Burris.
Yes.
7/29/55.
You were born on a Friday.
Okay.
That day in 2001, we were in a wreck on the way to North City. Remember?
I don't, yeah, I will never forget that.
We were in a wreck. We were driving up to see Brenda's aunt, and traffic stopped, and people behind us didn't stop, and they ran into
Well, they didn't stop until they hit us, and then they stopped. Lady right here that's been so nice and enjoyed, give us your birth date if you don't mind.
May 13th, 1982.
You were born on a Thursday.
Thursday, baby.
And your birthday of 82, right? Your birthday was Friday the 13th in 83, 88, 94, 05, 2011, 2016, 2022, and was on Mother's Day in 84, 1990, 2001, 2007, 2012, and 2018.
I have one
and
question.
And we'll be again in 2029.
I have one question to ask. Who spiked the tea tonight?
Nobody. I'm just excited. You know that.
Okay, before we close tonight, and thank you all for having us. This has been very special. I've got a new friend that we've met tonight. Jesse, would you come up here if you don't mind?
Hey, Jesse.
Well, Jesse's not here yet. Come on up here, Jesse. How many of you know Jesse? Oh, everybody knows Jesse. Well, I just met Jesse tonight. He is a special, special young man. He sat at the table out there and handed Andy books to sign. You did a wonderful job. And
yes.
I want to, from HK and me and Andy, I want you to have your own personalized copy of The Awakening of H.K. Derryberry. Thank you.
I love
Okay.
What?
Now, if you'd like to know, if you'd like to talk to HK when we finish, we'll walk out there and Andy will give us a chair someplace. If you want to find out the day of the week you were born, he's going to tell all the women that you don't look a day over 18.
And that I am
He will
adopted.
tell most of the women that he's adoptable. And if he tells you that, his clothes are in my car, you can have him tonight. And then we also met a special friend I want to recognize, and if he'll stand up, we have a man that came all the way from Chicago, Illinois to hear this presentation. Joshua, would you stand up?
Yeah.
Let's hear it for Joshua.
Yeah.
Joshua has just moved down here to stay with his grandparents and would be a great person to maybe add to the congregation here. And Joshua, it was nice meeting you tonight. Okay?
Nice meeting you.
Remember, if you are getting down and depressed, just pick up the phone and call HK. He's giving you 100% money back guaranteed pep talk.
Facebook.
Okay, how many of you use Facebook? If you haven't done this, HK's website is hkderryberry.com. There are some business cards back there with his logo and everything on it. Go to his website, like his fan page. He now has over 15,000 people that follow him. And we'd love to, and then Andy will do, and we'll get together with our pictures we made tonight. Probably one day next week we'll do a post about being here tonight. So anyway, remember, anything in life is possible. If God is in your life, anything is possible. Just determine what your capabilities are, work hard, have fun, never give up, and always keep a positive attitude.
Yes.
Thank you all for having us. God bless you.
I did good.
You did good.
I don't mean to get...
So grateful for Jim and HK being with us. Don't forget they're going to be outside here signing the books if you need to get one. And tomorrow, where are you going to be?
Cumberland County High School
In the Rotary Club. That's in Pikeville on Friday. So he's got a really busy schedule. We're so thankful for him being here tonight.
Friday night, I'm doing the coin toss at the football game.
Homecoming football game. He'll be out
Where? Here?
No, at Pikeville.
In Pikeville? Oh, that's awesome.
Is it homecoming?
It is homecoming.
He'll be the homecoming coin tosser for the football game. All right, if you would bow with me, we'll dismiss. Father in heaven, again, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time that we've been able to share together. We thank you for Jim and HK and them sharing their life with us. Father, we just ask that you bless them. And Father, bless us as we go from this place. First in Christ's name we do pray. And amen.